The Legend of the Warrior in Love. One of the assistants was in love with a girl from the city and was very troubled. He had reached the crossroad where he had to choose between the family life and the way of the healers. Danya Sylvia took the opportunity to instruct us with one of her stories. In the evening, she asked Don Melchior to tell us the true story of Popo and Isicta. He began in the storyteller's manner, just like Danya Sylvia. The story of the warrior and his beloved is well known in Mexican culture. It is immortalized in the form of Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl, two huge volcanoes that are visible even from Mexico City on a clear day. What is less well known, however, is the interpretation we, the healers, give to this legend, said the Don Melchior with a malicious expression, moving his eyebrows up and down in an undulating fashion. His buffoonery gave a great boost to the assistant's interest in his story. Moments like this make one appreciate the flair with which sorcerers adapt any situation to their purpose. Don Melchior went on. This story goes back to antiquity. They say it goes back to Ameca, as that town was called in those days. Today it is called Ameca Mecca, or the other Ameca. Because the new town was built on top of the previous one after it was destroyed by a volcanic eruption. In those days, before the eruption, when people still called it Ameca, there lived in that area a great healer who had close contact with the spirit of the mountain. They say that the sorcerer had made an agreement with the entity of the mountain and, as planned, gave light, so to speak, to a virgin inside a cave. There, it is said, the spirit of the mountain took possession of her newborn baby, and thus emerged the warrior Popocatépetl. Many tales are told of the adventures of that warrior. The best known one is that of his love for a beautiful princess of an enemy people, a love that was obviously impossible. According to popular history, the lovers decided to elope together and fled but was pursued. Having no other choice, they climbed to the top of the mountain and threw themselves into the void. But they never touched the ground. They became two birds and flew away together towards the horizon. The healer's version, however, says that Popo was fathered by a great healer and, according to their story, wanted to follow in his father's footsteps. He had felt the healer's vocation since childhood and had in fact faithfully followed all the steps on the warrior's path. He was about to become a sorcerer like his father, but as fate would have it, Popo went to the town's annual festival, where he met the lovely Exita, for whom he instantly developed an ardent passion. The young lovers forgot the world and gave themselves over to their love. As they both lived in that area, they wandered together through beautiful forests surrounding the mountains. Stories past and present tell of how dangerous certain places are in those mountains. Old people say that no one should climb up or enter the caves there for they are the abode of spirits. Legend has it that during one of their strolls, the young couple went to the mountains and got lured away by the spirits that inhabited the cave. That day, the lovers climbed the steep slopes and were never heard of again. Some believe they met an ordinary death in the ravines or were lost in the maze of caves. Others believe they passed into the other world through an opening that formed from time to time naturally in the area. The point is that this story shows how easy it is to stray from the path. It is very easy indeed to give in to your feelings and be engulfed by the everyday world. To be a warrior, one must have unbending intent. As he spoke the words, Don Melchior stared at the fellow who was suffering because of the same problem. The man lowered his head to escape his withering look. After a moment of awkward silence, Don Melchior continued. Well, as for the lovers who had entered the cave and tried to make the crossing, they might even have made it. But that maneuver requires even more energy, since it involves leaping from our world to the other world, cold, to put it this way. Without proper preparation, that kind of leap usually means death. One of the assistants asked if it was true that there were or still are places like that. Don Melchior retorted, "Well, look here at little Godfather Emmanuel. He's already been in the wolf's mouth, but has managed to return intact. Isn't it true, Godfather?" "It is true, Godfather," Don Manuel replied. "Many years ago, in my youth, I went to those caves with 2 companions. We camped at that location and waited for 3 days until the wolf's mouth opened. That is what we call the door to the other world. It was midnight, and we believed ourselves sufficiently trained, but upon entering, each of us was sucked into void. I managed to escape at the last moment because I realized I would not survive the test, and, gathering all my strength, jumped backwards. But my 2 companions who had entered ahead of me were lost. We never found out if they managed to survive or if they disintegrated under the tremendous pressure. My benefactor was furious because of our audacity and disobedience." Shaking his head, Don Manuel concluded, "There are also those who believe that the secret to passing through that doorway lies in the love shared by a couple, and only as a couple is it possible to pass through to the other world, as was the case with Popo and Aixita." The tale of the poet king. Among the kings of ancient Tenochtitlan, there was one who personified the poetry itself. His name was Nazahualcoyotl, and he raised greatly the level of culture among his people. During his rule, great spiritual and material advances were made. Temples and aqueducts were built, the streets were paved, and a general state of well-being prevailed, created by trade between cities. They say that, as king, Nazahualcoyotl was a great conqueror, and not only of his enemies in battle, but also of the spirit. He constantly sought the path of illumination and evolution. In Daniel Silva's kitchen of an evening, it was customary to recite some of Nazahualcoyotl's poems. They would first be spoken in their original language, then repeated in Spanish for those who didn't understand the language of the ancients. It was made clear, however, that although one could translate the words, the real feeling was inevitably lost. This is one of my favorite. How wonderful it was to hear the voice and partake in the knowledge of those who had left long ago. It was as if they were speaking from distant past directly to our ears. The translation of these wise words went as follows. What a song I have lived, what a flower I have brought to bud, O princess. I am Tochi Huitzin, the wreath maker. Here's my claim of flowers. Friends, favor me and hear this word-woven dream. In the spring, the sweet corn's golden sprout gives us life. The flame-colored cob refreshes us. How rich it is, this necklace of knowledge. How faithful to us the hearts of our friends. We were very pleased to hear the poems and discuss their deeper meaning in such a way that we were able to draw important lessons from each. In fact, I became so fond of the inspired words of the poet king that I collected virtually all of his available texts. While doing that, I unwittingly got into the idiom of the ancients, and thus, with pleasure and almost without effort, I managed to learn the language of our ancestors. I had been granted the honor of preparing a recital for one of our poetry evenings and performing it. To the surprise of the elders, I did it in their own language. At the end, they smiled happily and applauded me. I remember reciting this beautiful poem on that occasion. And it translates to this. At last I understand. I hear a song, I see a flower. Oh, may they never wilt. I feel out of myself. I weep, grieve, and ponder. Say and remember. Oh, if I were never to die, never to disappear. Go where death is not, where victory is mine. Thither I should go. Oh, if I were never to die, never to disappear. That night, we went to bed with this taste of rich hot atoll and with those sweet words. It seemed as if, in some magical way, the poems prepared us to enter dreaming.